This video is going to introduce you to SPSS, which is a software package for analyzing data. I just brought SPSS up, so I went over and I clicked on SPSS statistics. And when you do this, you get something that looks like this. It's just it appears to be a spreadsheet. Now you can type in data on your own, and we'll show you how to do that as well. But more often than not, you're going to have some existing data sets that you have to analyze. So you open up data sets in the same way that you open up data sets in Excel or Word or anything else. Just go up to File, and then let's go up to Open. Now, Open's a little bit more complicated than something like Excel in that you have a couple options. So Open Data is what you want. It's one that you're going to be using 98% of the time. So we have open data. Now, the way I have my computer organized is that I have a folder for all my teaching stuff, and then 451 is another folder, and then I have a data set. All right, so in data, I keep a lot of different files. And let's see, there's a file out here. You know what? Let's go over to data V5. Data V5 has the 5th edition of Siegel, and there happens to be a data set that is available on Blackboard for you called Siegel data. So let's go find that. So here's Siegel data, and you just double click that and it comes up. Now SPSS has two windows usually. When you start out like this, there's a possibility of other windows. So there's the data window, which we're looking at right now. There's also an output window. So whenever you do stuff, two things appear in the output window. So first is a log telling what you did. So here's some SPSS syntax, which we aren't going to talk about, but this just says that it opened up this data set. All right. The other thing that's going to appear in here is when we do analyses, the results of those analyses appear in that window. All right, let's go take a quick look at this data set. It comes from a company, and you have a record of roughly 71 employees, and you know various things about them. You know their employee number, you know their annual salary, their sex, their age, their years of experience, and the training level. Now in this data set, in all data sets, there are two tabs. So there's the data view. There's also a variable view. So when you're in the data view, and that's what you're in by default, you get to see the raw data. And so you can see every record and every variable. If you go into the variable view, this contains metadata about the data set. So this variable view controls the variable names. It controls their types. So you have different types of variables in SPSS. Now if you just click on, you see some dots over here, you get to see all the different types of variables that you can have in SPSS. So you can have numeric variables. Comma really just means I want to display this thing with commas. So if I had a number like 2,346,000, it'd stick a comma between the millions and the thousands, and then also between the third and fourth place as well. So between hundreds and thousands. So it'd be 1,001, 234 would be 1,234. You can have scientific notation. All these are really numbers. It's just displayed in different ways, whether you display them with scientific notation, commas, or dollar signs. The other one that's really important is string. So anytime you have alphanumeric characters like a name, an address, so anything that can take both numbers and characters, then that's a string. So really the two main types of variables are numeric, and you can display them in different ways, or you can have a string. Okay, so this next column just says how wide do you want to print things, how many decimal places. Label is kind of an important one. Label gives you the ability to have a verbose description of what the variable is. So you could say something like this: annual salary in dollars. And then that appears in the output, age in years. It's not that important in this little data set, but when you have a survey and maybe you have 300 questions on there, you usually want to put the exact question wording in this label box, and then the variable name is going to be some reference to where it is in the survey. So this would be Q1, Q2, Q3, all the way up through Q300, and here you'd give the verbatim description. Another column that's very important is the value labels. So often we have a variable that is categorical. So by categorical, I mean something like race or marital status, or in this case, we have two categorical variables, sex and training level. Now, these are usually coded as numbers. So they give you numbers. Let's just go click on the sex value. And so what you're going to see is that the value 0 indicates a male, the value 1 indicates a female. So whenever it's printed or displayed, you get to see male or female rather than 0 or 1. There's a number of reasons why data sets come this way. The first, and probably the most important, is that it keeps your data clean. If you have people typing strings, they're going to type them in every which way. So for example, sometimes people will capitalize female, sometimes they'll leave it lowercase. Well, capital F-E-M-A-L-E is distinct from lowercase F-E-M-A-L-E. So those are two distinct values, even though they mean the same thing. And it gets even worse when you get to things like state names, because some people will abbreviate them, people will abbreviate them differently. And so if you don't use numbers to represent these categorical values, you're going to have a major data cleaning task ahead of you. The second reason why we often use numbers rather than the strings is because it saves space. So, storing a single byte to represent 0 or 1, if that's the way SPSS stores it, is a lot more efficient than having a long string. It gets much worse with state names. So how long is Connecticut or Pennsylvania in terms of characters versus using a 1 or 2 byte code for what Pennsylvania or Rhode Island is. Okay, so you can enter these in yourself. Right? You can also classify variables as to their measurement level, and that's about it for this variable view. So we have the data view and we have the variable view. Now, something that always comes up is getting value labels to appear correctly. So we look at the sex variable, we're going to see values male and female. Now, if this is the first time you've run SPSS, chances are you're not seeing male and female, you're seeing 0s and 1s. So how do you turn those value labels on? The answer is you go up to View, and you go to Value Labels. Now, this is just a toggle. So if I click on this, it turns value labels off, and now I see 0s and 1s. If I go back to View and Value Label, it turns them back on. So usually you want them on. So that's a quick introduction to this basic data window. Now, there are a number of menus up here. The ones that you're going to use most often are View, Data, Transform, Analyze, and Graph. So let me give you a quick tour of what some of these do. So if we start out with Analyze, what Analyze has is every statistical routine that's in Siegel, as well as subsequent stats books. So this is where you go to do all sorts of analyses. So just for a quick demo, let's go to descriptives, and let's go to explore. This would be one of the most commonly used menu items around. And usually when you click on one of these analyze boxes, you get a little pop-up menu like this. Variables are always off on the left, and then you have various boxes that you can copy variables into. And you'll also have some options here. So as an example, let's bring age and years into the dependent list. So dependent list just means I want to analyze it. I encourage you to explore these various options. So let's go into plot for a second, and you'll see that here are various plots. By default, we're going to get some box plots. We're not going to get a histogram unless we ask for it. So please give me a histogram, and that's probably enough. And you can explore the other ones on your own. Go hit OK, and SPSS goes into deep thought for a surprising amount of time, and here you get all your basic statistics. You get the sample size, the mean, standard deviations, median. Here's a histogram, and then here's a box plot. So that's in general, you're going to be going up here. When we get to chapter 10, we'll be spending a lot of time in compare means, and when you get next quarter, you'll spend a lot of time in the regression box. Okay, let's just take a quick look at graph. Now, usually you're going to go into the legacy dialogues, and so if you wanted to create, for example, a bar chart of, let's make a bar chart of training level. We just copy this into the category axis, go hit OK, and we get a bar chart. So when you do analysis, it'll probably be under graph or analyze. Real quickly, let's go back to the data set. Sometimes we need to transform a variable. So maybe we want to take a log of something. Well, all of that is done under transform. And so these are all different ways of transforming a variable. So if we wanted to compute the log of something, we'd go into transform compute, and then let's form log salary. So that's the logarithm of salary. So let's spell it that way. And you just type in a numeric expression as you would in Excel. If you're not sure, you can get help. So if we go into arithmetic, LG10 happens to be the log. You get the help window down here. You can click on the up arrow to bring it in. It looks like I hit it twice rather than once. So let me just fix that. And then you can bring a variable over from here. When you're done, go hit OK. And so what you'll see is all you get in the output window is a record that you created this log. And if you go back to the data set, now you have a new column that's log salary. That's probably enough for an introduction. The only other thing I'll mention, after you've edited a data set the way I have, you may want to save it again. So you can come up and save it, which overwrites the original file, or do save as, which would create a copy in a different place. Another thing that you might want to do is save your output. So you have to go to the output window and you click save or save as you would expect. So I encourage you to bring up SPSS and try some of these things on your own.